Hello, my name's Andy Ebbs. I'm a solution consultant at OpenText, and I'm going to provide a video today on how you might migrate Windows or Linux machines from an VMware ESX environment to a target environment. In today's demonstration, it'll be Proxmox, but in fact, it could do pretty much any environment. So we could be going from Proxmox to VMware. We could be going from Azure to Amazon, Amazon to a KVM environment, KVM to Hyper-V, Hyper-V to a physical machine, and maybe a physical machine to Google Cloud. So using the same tool, but this migration tool allows you to migrate a live server while everybody's still online, just a few minutes of downtime at the end while we shut down the old environment and start the new one up. So as I say, today's demonstration will be from VMware to Proxmox. So I've got my VMware environment here, it's just a small environment, and in here I have a server. Today I'm going to use an Ubuntu virtual machine, so you can see that machine here. If I just log into it quickly, this is going to be a live server. It could be running any application, could be including things like databases, whether it's SQL or MySQL or Oracle or SAP or whatever you might be using in your environment. It doesn't have to be a database, it could be a web server, it could be an application server. It just needs to be running an operating system we support, which is our support for Linux is pretty broad. In the case of Linux, it's going to be Red Hat, CentOS, SUSE, Oracle Enterprise Linux, Rocky, etc. But today I'm using Ubuntu. We also do the Windows platforms as well. Pretty much any Windows version you might want to use as long as it's a server edition. So this is my live Ubuntu source ESX machine, or Ubuntu ESX source machine. And on here, you can see there's a desktop. I've added a file in here just so we've got something to see that's a live system. I'm making changes to it. So I'm going to, set things up. So this is a live server, as I say, so I'm just going to save those changes. And we're going to be going to a Proxmox environment. Now, I'm not an expert on Proxmox, so I do apologize if some of these things I'm clicking on stupid buttons. But what we have here is a few different machines running in my Proxmox environment. I've got Ubuntu, Proxmox Target, which is the machine we're going to use. You can see I've got a plain operating system installed on here. It has to be the same distribution and major version. So my source is Ubuntu 20.04. So this target machine would need to be Ubuntu 20.04 as well. It might be a bit easier if I quickly switch to the console view so we can see it at a bit bigger screen. But you can see this one just has a command line on it. We can see some information about it. For instance, host name. It's a live server. It's got its own host name. I might look at the version of ESX that's running on here. ESX, Ubuntu is running on here. There you can see it's just a standard 20.04 06 machine, and it's just built with just the plain operating system. So I've not installed a graphical user interface, not installed any applications. I've run apt update just to make sure it's got the necessary drivers and stuff up to date on this machine, because we're going to be using the network settings that are stored on this machine, so we need those to be viable. I'd also want to make sure that if there was any mount points on the source machine, that you create the same mount points on the target for the disk side of things. But the hardware is obviously going to be VMware to Proxmox, so it's going to be very different. But things like processor count, amount of memory, the size of the disks, that's sort of irrelevant. As long as enough space for the data, the machines can be quite different. So this is my Proxmox machine. You can see it's running. It's not really doing anything at the moment. It's just going to be a target. So I'm going to go back to my source machine. You can see that's still running, and we're going to open the Carbonite replication console. So the Carbonite replication console is basically where you control everything from it. It's a Windows application. It can run anywhere on the network, can see the machines. You can see I've got 4 machines in here because I've got some other demos that I run in this lab as well. But I'm going to choose the Ubuntu ESX source machine. So this is the machine that we were just looking at a second ago with the picture of the big cat on it. I'm going to right-click on it. You can also see the target machine there as well. But I'm going to click on that. I'm going to choose Migrate, and then I'm going to choose that I want to do a full server migration. And then I can choose the target machine, the Ubuntu Proxmox target. So I just select that. You can see a few settings in here. We're not going to go through them all because I want to keep things brief today, but you can pretty much use just the defaults. For the purpose of my demo, because I'm going to keep everything ready for my next demo, I'm going to retain the target machine's network settings, and I think that's probably going to be most common. It means that if you fail over into a target environment on a different subnet, we will allow you to keep the network settings that you know are good and usable that might be running in a public cloud infrastructure, for instance. I'm not going to change anything else, but you can see there are settings there for network adapters and what to do to map them and the route through the network, and we've got compression, we've got bandwidth throttling and things like that as well, all advanced things. I'm going to click next, and it then validates. So it's checking to see the settings I've given it are usable. And we've got lots of nice green ticks here, but it is warning me of a couple of things. It's suggesting that there's maybe a difference in the disk size here. It's not going to cause any problems through my demonstration. And generally, you probably want to be able to create new machines in your target environment with bigger disks. It's an opportunity to resize those. But that's fine because we're going to be replicating the files. We're not taking snapshots or replicating disk blocks and things like that. So we're replicating files and folders, live open files and folders, but it means that the disk sizes can be different. And then the processor count is different as well. I can't remember, I've got 2 on the source, on the ESX machine, and 1 on the target. It could be the other way around, doesn't really matter. It's just warning you because you might affect your performance of your machine when you fail over. But for our software to actually work, they don't have to be the same. So I'm going to choose next or finish, and that's it. That's the job created. So we can see a job has been created here, Ubuntu ESX source to Ubuntu Proxmox target. And it's starting its thing here. It's synchronizing the data. It's going to take it a few minutes to just synchronize this all together. And while it does that, I'm probably going to fast forward a little bit, and we'll then come back when it's back to 100%. There will be some more information about how much data is in the queue and stuff update here as well in a minute as well. But the other thing too, so you can see it's got about 8 gig to send over the network. While it's just doing that, I'll just confirm again if we switch back to the source machine. This machine is currently still live while we're doing the synchronization. So I can go into this file again, and I could maybe modify it a bit, saying mirroring or the synchronization, just to show that it's a live server while we're doing this work. So save the changes again, so we'll see all those disk commits and so on. Right, so I'm going to give it a minute or so, and I'll pause and resume once the data's in sync. And again, it's probably best if I switch over to the console so I can keep an eye on that. Okay, so the memory is completed. It now says protecting. That's a hangover from being a high availability solution. Protecting meaning the data is in sync. Mirror is idle. That's the synchronization process. Basically, it's ticking over, just doing what it needs to do, and it's replicating any new changes. The time it took to get to this point was probably about 10-15 minutes in my environment here. The typical environment is going to depend on how big the machines are, how much data, how quick your disks are, how much bandwidth you've got, what the latency is like, and so on and so on. It's quite difficult to predict exactly, but it doesn't really matter how long it takes because the users are online while you install, while you configure the job, and while the data gets synchronized across. And it's only now that we've got the data in sync that we're going to expect a little bit of downtime when I shut down my old environment and start this new one up. So once again, I'm going to switch back to the Ubuntu machines. In fact, I've got the window open twice here. So I've got one here, which is the command line one. So this is the target. That's the Proxmox target machine that we're replicating to. And then I've also got my ESX environment here. It's logged me out, so I'll just quickly log back in again. But we should see the desktop. And again, if we just make a quick change to the file to show it's still a live server, and we'll just say mirror complete. So at the moment, what's happening is the data is in sync. We're keeping it in sync by just replicating the byte level changes that are happening to the live files. So when I, in effect, shut that file down and some data gets written to disk, we see that instruction, that disk modification instruction. We capture it as it passes through the Microsoft I/O stack, or it could be Microsoft Windows in a Linux environment, but the equivalent for the file system file system being modified. We're going to capture that change, and that's what we're replicating after the target. So we're ready to do a cutover now. You can see there's not much else to look at here. You know, the console shrunk up a little bit there. But you can see when we do the reboot in a second, this machine is going to change from being this, you know, the command line black screen to being a copy of that purple desktop you were seeing a minute ago with the cat on it. So let's do that. So we'll go back to the Carbonite replication console. We're going to right click on the actual server. We're going to say failover and cutover, and we're going to cut over live data and cutover. So that's it. So there's not been an awful lot to this, really. You know, we need to install a small agent on each source machine, each target machine. That takes a few minutes, and then the actual synchronization takes place in the background. Might take a few hours on a larger server on a slower network, or if you're going over the wide area network or something like that. But what's happened in the background, though, while I've been talking, is we should see some of these servers are shut down. So the first one to maybe look at is my VMware environment. Just see that here. So it's my VMware environment. You can see the server's gone offline. It's a process that we've instructed. So that's now changed from being a green tick next to it to ready to start up again, but I'm not going to do that. You can see it's currently shut down. You can power it back on if you wanted to. So there's nothing actually happened to that, so it's still a safe server. But by shutting it down, make sure if there's anything on the live server, it's been sent across to the target so we don't lose anything. So we can leave the VMware environment and go to the Proxmox one. And we can see the Proxmox target machine has now rebooted. It's immediately got a desktop, as you can see. And if I log into this machine, we should see the same desktop as we saw before when it was running in the VMware environment, but now running in the Proxmox environment. And for those who are not familiar with Proxmox, it's basically a nice interface on top of the KVM platform. So here comes the desktop, and you can see there's that big cat, and there's that demo file that we were working on before. And if I open the file, we should see it should say mirror completed, because that was the last change I made to it. And that's it. The server's completed, the migration's completed, and although today we've been looking at VMware to Proxmox, I could equally use the same tool to go from Proxmox to VMware, or I could go to Nutanix, or I could go to KVM, or to a public cloud like Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud, or using the same workflow. Works pretty much straightforward. I've also just used Linux today, but we can do Windows as well. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions, you can give me a shout, and just so got my details, abs@opentext.com. Thank you very much.